Hello. Thank you for your time today.
That's quite all right. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure. So I have 9 questions for you.
Full Wire is it's a gritty dystopian sci-fi. It's a story of unrequited love in an age of transhumanism, set against the backdrop of a crime which happens in London in the year 2186. That's an interesting question. It's the seeds of the book began as a kind of a humorous blog that I was planning, which was kind of supposed to be all about a man who was in the future, who was reviewing music from our time to his peers. And there would be no plot. It would be just a vision of the future, which would kind of trickle down, you know, as you kind of got more into the blog, and it would be stories about his friends and stories about kind of little picaresque adventures that he would go on. I got about 20,000 words into it. And then our daughter was born, and my partner had heart failure, and the blog was scrapped entirely. And it got me thinking about replacement organs and bodily augmentation, and if only somebody could just grow her a new heart. And the story kind of took off from there. I was, late nights with a baby on my shoulder, asleep, thankfully. And, it gets to like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and, I'm wide awake and baby's sleeping here. Yeah. And I just picked up my phone and started tapping it out on my phone, what became the first half of the first draft of this novel. Well, I mean, I like I said, I mean, I wrote most of it at night, quite late at night. So, I mean, and I think it was because it was winter and the start of the beginning of spring. So the nights were still quite dark. And I think that made an impression on what I was writing. And there is quite a darkness that permeates the book. As far as my writing schedule goes, I mean, I just sit down and write when I can. I don't have I know some people say sit down and do 4 hours, yeah, whether it's rubbish or not, that kind of thing. And I do know people that do that are structured. But I don't. So if I'm not feeling it, then I just don't. If I don't feel like writing, I just won't. I'll go and do something else. I don't see the point in sitting down to do something that I'm not I don't feel it in my heart. So then I'll sit down and write, and I might write for 3 days. But yeah, so when the tap is turned on, it comes on. But sometimes it takes weeks for that to happen. So I don't really have much of a schedule as such. I just write when I can, on what I can. I mean, I wrote a chapter on the back of my tax return in a coffee shop because I forgot to take my iPad out with me once, and I was sitting in Starbucks, and the only thing I had in my bag was a copy of my tax return. So I wrote half a chapter with a biro on the back of my tax return. Well, I suppose I started writing when I was in my early teens, in playing in bands. I'm a musician, and I've been in a few bands, and I used to write the lyrics, and those lyrics would they'd turn into like poems, or I'd make little stories out of them, or the little stories would end up being lyrics, that kind of thing. And I was at college or studying English, and we had a creative writing exercise to do, like a short story exercise. And I really enjoyed doing that. And one of the short stories that I wrote at college became an idea for a novel. And I've never really considered it. I think I must have been about 20, I think, when I had this idea for this novel. And I started writing this novel, and I got a little bit way into it, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And it was so bad, really. I mean, I haven't looked at it since. I've still got it somewhere in a book.
Oh.
I have all these scrapbooks that I make. I used to write down like little poems and little stories and things, and cut out things from magazines and stick them in and make these scrapbooks. And I've got quite a few of those. And I've still got the novel in there somewhere, like, you know, a quarter of the novel. But I haven't looked at it for a long time. And it was so bad, I think, and I got sidetracked. I didn't really consider myself to be a writer, or somebody that could write a novel, even though I kind of wanted to. And it took a back seat for a long time until this happened, until Full Y happened. And that happened purely by a chance encounter with a scientist who lives around the corner from me. And I began, I struck up a conversation with him, and the story kind of grew from there, really. I mean, like the blog, the music thing. So that's kind of how it all kind of started. That's how I started writing again. And then I was encouraged by my writers group to write some short stories. So I started writing actually sitting down, planning and writing some short stories, and they got quite a good reception. So I started submitting them, and they all got published, or longlisted in competitions or whatever. And this was happening at the time where I was about halfway through the novel, and I'd reached a little bit of an impasse, and I didn't quite know whether I was going to be able to finish it, because it is quite hard work writing a novel. And I think the success of this short fiction I was doing gave me the kind of impetus to finish the novel. He kind of said to me, well, you know what, John, you can do this if you want. You've just got to sit down and do it. So that's what I did. And here we are. Self-motivation.
Okay.
Absolutely self-motivation. And I mean, I know a lot of people probably say this. Definitely for me. I mean, I don't have like I said, I write when I feel like it. And I tend to write at night when everybody else is asleep. So I don't really have that worry about finding the time to write. It's finding the motivation to write. I will find anything else to do. You know, I'll clean the kitchen. I'll install a dishwasher. I'll do anything other than what I'm supposed to be doing. But when you get so far into a work, like a long work, like a novel, once you're about, say maybe halfway through, or you've reached a point where you have to continue. So that's the motivation, just to get it finished, and then get the next one started.
Yeah.
So the biggest obstacle for me, it's not, the writer's block. You can write through that, you can work through it. Finding the time to write is, for me personally, is okay. But motivation, sitting down and just getting it done. The publishing industry is, it needs to be there. And the thing about publishing is it takes a lot of time. It's a very slow process because they're reading a lot. I don't know what the figure is. I think it's 13,000. I think in the interview that I gave on paper, I think there was a typo, and I think it said 33,000. But I think the big publishing houses or the big agencies, they get somewhere between 13 and 15,000 submissions a year, and that's called a slush pile, and that must be awful. I can't imagine having to sift through all of that. And reading takes time, and writing takes time, and that's it. The thing about publishing is it's perseverance. Like most things, you just got to keep going. Eventually, with hard work and a little bit of luck, you will find a home for your work, but you've got to keep going. You've got to persevere, and you've got to keep trying. Because if you don't try, and if you don't put it out there, no one's going to read it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, just got to keep going. From the first moment I was contacted by Novella, it was an absolute pleasure. They were absolutely brilliant to deal with. Very knowledgeable people. It's been a really, really friendly and interactive process. So they give the writers a kind of fair amount of control and autonomy over how the book looks, and in terms of editing, what to keep, what to cut. We do get quite a big say in that. It's been a really, really nice process from the moment they contacted me to all the way through. I'm not that experienced regarding in the whole general publishing industry per se, but I do know that Novella does seem to be a very fresh approach to publishing, and it's something that I'm kind of really happy to be on board with. Read, read everything. Read things out of your comfort zone, read things not in your genre, and write. There's no way you're going to be able to finish a novel or hone your skills as a writer if you don't practice. No one's going to see it other than you. So you can write what you want, doesn't have to be brilliant. The best advice I ever got was, it doesn't have to be any good. Just got to do it. No one's going to see it. Only you're going to see it. If you think it's rubbish, you can delete it. It doesn't have to be good, but you've got to do it. And you have to read. And read, read different kinds of novels that you wouldn't necessarily read. If you're I'm writing sci-fi and kind of dark fiction, and I'm reading romantic chick lit and romantic fiction, so that I can because there are elements in that I might want to use. So I'm going to need to learn how to do that, and how other authors do it. So you've got to read everything and write a lot, and there's no other way that you're going to be able to write anything without doing those two things. The single best thing I ever did was joining a writers group. In terms of my writing, in terms of confidence, joining a writers group, it gave me the confidence to finish the book, the confidence to write short stories, to get published for the first time, submitting. It's a big step. As somebody that's never written something to submit and then submit it, that's quite a big step for somebody to take if they've never done it before. Get the feedback from people, because you need to get used to handling feedback, and you also need to get used to handling negative feedback and rejections. That's part of the process. If you get disheartened because somebody's rejected your short story or your poem that you've poured your heart into, and you don't understand how anybody could not get it. They may get it. It just might not be right for them. You just got to keep going. Just keep trying. That's my advice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was amazing.